Welcome to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. In each episode, we're going to bring you insightful interviews and discussions with top restoration industry leaders. We're also going to delve into their business, the strategies that made them successful, and most importantly, the valuable lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Clinton James. I'm also the Chief Marketing Officer at Water Restoration Marketing. We're a digital marketing agency dedicated to helping restoration companies nationwide secure more high-value water jobs. Now, this show, it aims to provide you with the knowledge and tools you need to excel in the restoration industry. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. And welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. I am your host, Clinton James, Chief Marketing Officer over at Water Restoration Marketing. Working with restoration companies over the last 8+ years, a lot of things have changed, and there's a lot of things that stay the same, right? And one of the constant concerns I hear from restoration companies, I'm talking about clients, prospects, everybody, is they're struggling in 2025 to find, hire, and retain great talent. And I'm not just talking about water techs, right? I'm talking project managers, regional managers, estimators, even members of their leadership team. That's why it's really my pleasure today to bring on a guy that knows about talent acquisition, specifically for the restoration space. So today, we're lucky to be joined here on the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast by Mitchell Riley. Mitchell Riley is a partner with OPS Staffing. Mitchell, say hello to the audience.
Hey, everybody. Clinton, thank you so much for having me on, man.
Man, it is my pleasure. Mitchell and his team do a great job for a lot of restoration companies across the country, doing exactly what we just talked about, right? Going out and finding that next team member that's going to help take your restoration company to the next level. So, Mitchell, tell the audience a little bit about how you got involved in the restoration industry, and then, more importantly, how you got involved in talent acquisition for the restoration industry.
I think both are kind of twofold, right? So I got out of school, graduated from U of H, hashtag go Cougs, was building homes here in the Houston area. I went to school as a PR major. So they hired me to do some sales, marketing, office management stuff. One weekend, they fired their superintendent. They tell me, "Oh, Mitchell, you'll be fine. Go out to job sites, make sure subs show up, this, that, and the other." Look up 4 years later, I had PM'd 6 different homes, all of them $2, $3, $4 million plus. It was a lot of fun. It was a whirlwind. The clients were really demanding and really difficult. And I think the projects I liked the most were ones where we designed it. Okay. Another GC ran it into the ground and Mitchell came in to fix it. And that's what I really became passionate, because I liked helping that homeowner. They were awesome. They were great. I'm still friends with them. Amazing people. My father, Sam, had actually started OPS Staffing. He had run a very large temp staffing company in the Southeast that did a lot of oil and gas, and some other types of temporary as well as direct hire recruiting all throughout the Southeast. They were very, very large. He decided to branch out, go out on his own. One of his first hires, Aaron, was a former Service Master franchise owner. Okay. And Aaron was the one that introduced my father, Sam, into the restoration space. Said, "Hey, there's a huge need for both temporary staffing, direct hire recruiting." This was back in 2012. Around 2014, they had made the decision to only do direct hire recruiting. It was down to just my dad. The business was not really doing great. He was really struggling to find the candidates at the top of funnel part of it, right? Great on the phone, good at interviewing, could get business, really struggling to find candidates, which was hard. He and I are talking one day. He's like, "Hey, this is the biggest pain point in my business, the bottleneck. You think you could figure out what this Boolean search logic's all about?" So me being a millennial, that's pretty confident I can do anything with YouTube. I jumped on YouTube and started teaching myself everything about Boolean search. I spent just about every waking hour after work. So from like 5 to 10 every day, I was working for free with this vision that I'm going to drown this guy in candidates. Then he has to hire me because this sounds like something fun to do. And it worked. Within 3 months, his placement skyrocketed 400%. He's like, you got to join. Like, let's do this. Let's jump on board. There was no safety net, didn't have a lot of savings. He didn't have a lot of savings left. We were just going to make it happen. So that's how he got into restoration. He taught me everything I know currently about it. And yeah, we looked up 13 years later. We're still doing it, and it's been great.
I love that. Now, a lot of the audience may not be in a position where they can afford to go out and hire somebody to do placements for them. So we're going to make sure that we give that audience a lot of value. But for those that are in a position to make that kind of investment, or really just need that resource, tell the audience a little bit about the companies that you work with and the roles you typically hire for.
Yeah, so I would say I've worked with everything from your $3 million, we've got 5 to 6 members on our team, all the way up to some of the big national companies and everything in between. So the size and scale of the company doesn't necessarily matter. Obviously, they definitely need to be well capitalized. Getting an executive recruiter involved isn't cheap. And I think there's a lot that people don't understand what all recruiters have to do and the tech stack we carry to find the people, and then all the experience to get it to a hire, which we can cover in a little bit. Yeah. Role wise, we've done everything. I mean, I cut my teeth recruiting techs. We don't do it anymore. I've got a lot of suggestions on how to find techs, but everything from office managers up to CEOs, COOs, and CFOs. I've done everything in between.
I like that. Maybe we'll give the audience a little insight as to where you think those water technicians are hiding. All right, before we go too much further, I want to give the audience some real actionable takeaways. So let's talk a little bit about best practices, right? Talent acquisition strategies specifically for restoration companies. Those that are kind of working with tight budgets, what are the low-hanging fruit strategies in recruiting that really deliver a great return on investment and time spent?
Yeah, I think the number one suggestion I make to a lot of business owners in an intake call, and a question I ask them, is, do you have an employee referral program? Right? You're going to go out, get an executive recruiter involved. It's going to cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Make it worthwhile, but maybe it's 1,000, 500, couple grand, whatever you can afford that you think moves the needle for your people. Incentivize them to be your giant TA team when they're interacting with other people on job sites or in networking events, things like that. So that would be number one.
I
Right.
really like that one, Mitchell, because there is no one that's going to sell company culture like a person that lives inside that culture. And if you've created a great culture that your employees really enjoy and are passionate about working with you and the other members of the team, they're going to do a great job championing your business to that next candidate, right? That next rock star hire. So, what else you got for them?
Totally. Yeah. And on that note, keep it top of mind. Like, it can't be hey, we told him this in onboarding. We haven't talked about it for the last 3 years. It should come up once a month to remind your team we're always looking for good people, right? Keep reinstilling that thought into them. Other good low hanging fruit. Let's see. LinkedIn obviously is kind of like a duh, but if you don't have a network on LinkedIn, what are you doing? If you don't have a social media presence, period, get one together. Get involved in Facebook, get involved in any and all places where you think restoration professionals would congregate. Get involved in your local networking events too, right?
Going back to social media, I talk to clients all the time, and they're talking about wanting to get more like emergency water jobs, and they're talking about potentially running meta ads. Well, that's not where people go when they come home and they're standing in 2 inches of water. But it doesn't mean you don't need to focus on Meta and Instagram, because it could be a great resource for sharing your company culture, sharing what it's like to be a team member in that environment, tracking employees' journeys as they get promoted and working with you. And you don't know who else in the community is watching that kind of stuff, right? And they might see that and want to be, hey, I want to be a part of that restoration company, right?
Totally.
Anything else you can think of?
No, those would be two of like the really big ones. And I think the more fun, like anybody can walk a job site, show before and after pictures, all that type of stuff. But the more fun you can have and show a fun environment, the better off you'll be attracting this younger generation. And there's two companies. I'll plug them. They're not even clients. I just think they do an amazing job at this, and they probably don't need me for this reason. But Thomasville Restoration, Titan Restoration,
Where are they located?
Phoenix, Titan's in like the Arizona market. I do know them really well. Amazing company, great culture. Their social media is just like you can tell they all love working together and have a lot of fun. It's not just business stuff, right? They're playing pranks on each other, stuff like that. Thomasville, kind of the same kind of thing. They've got this really fun like videos constantly going up that are just showing what it's like to work there, what it's like in restoration, things like that. And I imagine they get a lot of lead magnet out of that for candidates, right? So that may not work for your small shop, right? But I think LinkedIn and just developing a habit of creating connections in your area, 30 minutes while you're having a cup of coffee, go through on your phone, the little add to network button, and just look at who's a restoration professional in your area. You can search a geography and just start clicking connect, right? Like that is a really good habit you could create, and you'll look up 5 years from now and have 10+ thousand connections like myself and some other restoration professionals, right?
I like that. What do you think of the guys that are going to the restoration specific events and trade shows, using that as an opportunity to maybe potentially source some high-end talent?
I've heard internal TA call it fishing with dynamite, right? Like some internal TA teams, like they'll tell me, "Hey, I'm going to RIA," and we'll jokingly talk about, "All right, well, who are you going after at the mixer?" Right? They've had a few drinks, you're targeting. It is a great place to just get to know people, and it can go above and beyond talent acquisition. It's partnerships, right? Like maybe you need somebody in your market bigger than you that can handle that big commercial loss. You're going to meet that person at an event like that. So if you're not already out there, it's a lot. And I'm a small business. I'm probably being hypocritical. I'm probably being, what's the word I'm looking for, Clinton here? I'm probably being hypocritical here,
Okay.
right? And the fact that I don't go to those events and I should, but I am a small business owner. It's wicked hard to find the time to break away from the day to day and get there. But anybody that can make that time, it's going to have a huge impact.
As a small business owner as well in the servicing the restoration community with my digital marketing agency, this year's the first year I attended industry events. Been to a
Nice.
few. It's been great. We'll get you on the road, Mitchell. You'll come with me. We'll go find your next great candidates for restoration companies.
Sam and I did it for 3 to 4 years early on. We were very, very present, going to a lot of networking events, all of the industry specific trade shows, stuff like that. And I definitely think it helped us build a brand. And at this point, we're just so inundated with business all the time that it's like, is it worth it? One, can we even help those next people?
Right.
Like we're working on some scalability to allow that bandwidth, but yeah, it's something I definitely will get back into here in the next year.
And for all the restoration company owners, if you guys are at an RIA event or a core event, you see Mitchell and his team walking around, I'm telling you right now, hide your estimators, hide your project managers, because he's coming for them, right?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so let's talk a little tech. Because that's a great tool to use. Well, there are a lot of great tech tools to use, specifically going after talent acquisition. AI is a big buzzword right now in home service and every niche in every sector in the world, right? Are there any case study or case usage for AI for that, restoration company that's trying to do a lot of recruiting on their own internally?
There's a lot of new tools being thrown at talent acquisition agency owners and internal teams.
Okay.
And I'm probably going to say something that a lot of them won't like. It's all bubble wrapped around large language models. It's not truly agentic AI yet for any of these things. And there's a lot that they don't do well on the sourcing side. I haven't seen a single one that is like a one-stop shop, Clem, where you can have one tool that finds your candidates, does your outreach, and then you can engage them, right? And that's probably what every restoration owner needs right now.
Mhm.
And so because it's so fragmented, that's where, hey, there's not really a tool yet that can do it all in talent acquisition. Um, it's coming, it's down the road. We have our own agent that we've created that helps a lot with the research and the sourcing.
Mhm.
But the problem with restoration and when it comes to sourcing and restoration, if LinkedIn's probably your primary spot to find companies, do your research, things like that, right? Everything else from there is just a rip off of LinkedIn. So Zoom Info, Apollo, all the other data providers,
Right.
they're just taking the public information off LinkedIn.
Data aggregation.
Data aggregation, exactly. Bingo. So if you go to the source on LinkedIn, restoration companies, there is no industry specific filter, right?
Which
So
makes no sense. This is a multi-billion-dollar industry in the US alone.
no sense, but hey, it's good for me because it makes it hard to find people. So if it's hard to find people, it's good for me. So
Fair enough.
but this is the problem on my desk too, right? Finding the talent, doing the research is really challenging.
Yeah.
I do think eventually that's going to get there. And there's something called natural large language search that's going on that a lot of these AI tools out there are trying to implement that'll make it easier for an end user like yourself who knows nothing about Boolean logic to get on and just say, hey, I need to find an estimator. They must know Xactimate, and here's where I'm located. Go. And it will do it because AI will then use the inferences that you're giving it to do its own research and then shortlist candidates to the top of that funnel.
Wow. Okay.
Before that, right? Boolean logic, and maybe I'm getting way too far down a nerd.
No, I'm sure there's some people in the
Hopefully somebody finds this interesting.
I do.
Boolean logic is really just keyword searching, right? So if I say, hey, these are the job titles, estimator, project director, here's a keyword, Xactimate, and boom, pull me a list of candidates, and I'm going to engage them from there. That's keyword searching. But the problem becomes, what if you're a project manager who doesn't have Xactimate on your profile or your resume, and you still know you know how to estimate because you're a write and run guy, right? That inference is missed, right? So that's where the tech is going to go. That's what I've been trying to work on in building my own agent that can use that type of natural language model to research candidates quicker.
Mhm.
So we don't have to run 50 search strings to run one position because that's currently what my team would have to do.
I like it. All right. So job posting boards, those platforms have been really big for the home service industry. Are there any specific platforms that you would say are good for specific roles in a restoration company?
Yeah, like your bread and butter is going to be Indeed and LinkedIn, right? And I think Indeed kills it on production related roles,
Okay.
and LinkedIn does a really good job on probably everything above a technician. Technicians really aren't on LinkedIn a whole lot, so don't waste your time posting ads there. The real challenge becomes if there's 50 estimators in Raleigh that are qualified, there's probably more than that, but 50 visible people, right? What are the odds that all 50 of them are looking for a job at the same time and going to see your ad? That's the first problem, right? So if you say 10 to 20% of that's looking, that means we have 5 to 10 people maybe actively looking for your job ad. And then you're also competing against 15 to 20 other restoration companies with the exact same job posted, right? So the amount of available talent from plug and play candidates versus the amount of open job orders, that's where the real deficit is. And if you're not doing outbound, you know, reaching out to all those other passive candidates, right? We just established there's 45 to 40 other people that might say yes to a conversation, but they're not actively looking or spending the time to apply to that job.
Is it worth investing the money to not just run ads, but to allow yourself to do multiple cold outreach messaging on LinkedIn?
100%. And if going back to my first advice, right? If you have a network, your first level connections are free to reach out to.
There
Right.
you go.
So there you go, right? Boom. You're already saving a ton of money. The real cautionary tale behind job boards for me and most clients that hit my desk and say, hey, We've been running job ads for 2 to 3 months. We've had no luck. They've already racked up a couple $1,000s in a job ad build, maybe. It's why my team doesn't do it, because we'd just be fishing in the same pond that everybody else already tried. We need to go out there and present the opportunity to passive candidates and garnish their interest in a sales-oriented manner.
Mm.
But Indeed also is a PPC budget, right? It's a pay per apply, pay per click.
And I know something about that. So
Right. And right now you have, and there's like 7 or 8 really popular ones that are called AI auto apply tools. So any person can hand a resume to this AI auto apply tool, and depending on how much info they give it, it just goes out and applies on everywhere. LinkedIn, Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Monster, you name it. Any job board, it can do it in droves. So what I'm hearing and seeing from a lot of people that do use these job boards like Indeed is my budget's running up faster than it ever used to, right? And the candidates aren't even qualified, because what these AI auto apply tools do is they don't use any inference in terms of, is this person qualified? The person tells it, here's kind of the comp range I might need, just gives it some basic information.
Mhm.
And if they don't tell it what roles they're interested in, it's just going to go find roles with that comp range and apply. And it's doing it at the thousands in seconds, right?
volume shooting.
Volume shooting. That's it. So then it's, how much time are you spending just going through all this garbage that's not even from our industry, right? And it kills your budget. It kills your time. You're now having an admin looking at 300 applicants. And if that admin doesn't distinctly understand your industry, they may have missed the one person that's from our space that applied, and just the monotony of clicking reject, 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 right? So I think job boards have their tools. They're useful. They build brand awareness. I'm not saying you should just abandon all hope there, but the fill rate on them is drastically declining right now.
All right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, there's obviously a use. You don't want to completely abandon your Indeeds. But the other things that you mentioned, right? A good employee referral program, right? Going to local networking events and creating an online presence that people in your community constantly see, and then utilizing that online presence to promote any positions that you've got open in the company. Those are all pillars of a really good, successful internal talent acquisition team.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Things you can do on a shoestring budget, right? It just takes time, effort, and a little bit of grit.
I like that. I like that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about candidate experience, right? Because a lot of people, hey, I'm having conversations with great candidates, but for whatever reason, they're not biting. They're not jumping at my opportunity. So talk a little bit about candidate experience, everything from the initial contact to the interview process to the offer process. Where do you think most restoration companies fall short in that process?
Yeah, I'm a big data guy, right? So the first question I'd ask them is, how many turndowns do you have? How many people say no to job offers in any given year? If you're less than 70% acceptance rate, you've got something very wrong in your process, right? When somebody's interviewing you and you're interviewing them, it's a two-way street. You're trying to form a relationship. If I was going on a date, and in the first date, I took 2 weeks to even get back to them, do you think they're going to say yes? And if they do, how desperate is that person, right? So my best advice, right? Best practices, have a really narrowly defined process.
Yeah.
I always say, don't go less than 2 interviews. That's way too fast. Don't go more than 4 to 5.
Okay.
That gets a little excessive. 2 to 3 is kind of the sweet spot where you're going to see your maximum acceptance rate.
Okay.
And also have a clear-cut timeline. And I found that if you tell people what to expect going in, the length of time doesn't necessarily entirely matter, because you set the expectation up front. So Clinton, if I'm engaging you and I'm like, hey, Clinton, my client, it's going to be about a week. We'll set up a first interview, and then there's going to be another week, and it'll be a second interview. First interview is going to be a Zoom call, 30 minutes. Second one's going to be an in-person. At that point, they usually take about a week and a half, 2 weeks to bring you in, meet the team, kind of do a final interview where they get more opinions there. At that point, they'll be ready to make an offer. So we could be looking at 3 weeks to 4 to 5 weeks, depending on people's schedules. If at week 4 or 5, you're not going to be worn out and exhausted by this process of waiting and not knowing what's going on. So if you have a clearly defined, here's the steps, right? Clearly defined process and an ironed out timeline where you're holding yourself accountable, you're going to create a really good candidate experience. That's one, going to lead to an increase in acceptance. And two, going to create an employee that's much more rooted in your company's culture. And it's just going to make onboarding that much better.
I like that you said that, because there are some restoration company owners out there that are used to wearing every hat in the organization, right? They started as owner operator. They were the guy that answered the phone, went out and sold the jobs, went out and got the set up the equipment. If they needed to bring in some labor to turn and burn there, but they still have that mindset when it comes to hiring. Well, I'm the only person that needs to be involved in the interview process. This is my company, and I'm going to ultimately make the decision whether I bring on that candidate or not. Talk about how the that kind of mindset really can create a bad prospect or candidate experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if your organization, if you're the owner and you have a MIT manager or somebody that's leading the mitigation team and you're hiring all the technicians for that person's team and they have no level of involvement in the interview process, put yourself in their shoes. Would you be happy about that? Or did you just give me somebody that I know nothing about and go, right? That's a pretty extreme scenario.
You sound like Bill Parcells telling Jerry Jones that if you want me to make the dinner, you got to let me get the groceries, right? I don't remember if it was.
That was the quote, right?
Okay.
So I think the more collaborative the effort, and keep in mind it's a two-way street. So if you are never allowing the candidate to ask questions, and then you hammer them on the first interview, you hammer them on the second interview, great, I like him, here's an offer, and they say yes, what does it tell you about that person? Are they an active job seeker? And why are they an active job seeker? Or are they really a passive A-level player that has options? Because if you want B's and A's, if you only want to hire high-end talent, they've got options, right? So you have to create a process that's going to feel collaborative, give them the opportunity to ask questions, allow them to meet a key member or two of your team. That way they feel like, hey, this is the right step for my career.
I like that. Let's talk for a second about background checks and references, right?
Mhm.
Depending on the role that you're recruiting for in a restoration company, background checks are absolutely a necessity for a lot of those. References for some of the higher end, like I'm probably not going to look at for references for a water tech, but if I'm hiring a project manager, an estimator, or a new member of the leadership team, references are important, but certain states make it really hard to get good references. I live in California. It's definitely one of the toughest places, right? Um,
Yeah.
you also have people that have only worked at one restoration company for the last 5 or 10 years, and they're still employed. You actively recruited them, right? So it's really hard to go to that employer to get a reference when you don't even want them to know that you're potentially going to be stealing one of their team members there. So how do you handle that going through the interview process with your candidates?
Yeah, I always recommend references. It's a small industry. I would caution any hiring manager to be careful on backdoor references. I've seen some horror stories where I've got a really high-end candidate. They're at the end of the interview process. Some C-level executive that wasn't even involved in the interview process decides, let me make sure that my team's getting a good hire. They call a couple people. All of a sudden, that employee, their company finds out and they jumped the gun, got in front of it, and they threw an extra 50K on this salesperson's desk and it blew the whole deal apart.
Right.
You could put somebody out of a job. You could set yourself up for a counter offer doing things like that. You got to trust who you're asking those questions on if you are going to do a blind reference check. Most recruiters don't like it. I don't like it. I think there's just way too much danger that can come for the candidate, for the employee that you're potentially hiring. You can put them out of a job and then you really have to hire them, or you're opening yourself up for a potential lawsuit, right?
I like that. That seems like
So
a
it's
mistake.
exactly. It's very important that you're asking a person for their references. And what I hear from a lot of people, and I totally get the logic behind this. I think I've had this same thought process too, is well, if they're giving me references, they'd never give me a bad one, right? But it's the references they don't give you that can tell you a lot. Okay. So if I go to you, Clinton, and I'm like, hey, I need to get, and I leave it ambiguous. I always ask, give me 3 to 4 professional references. Please give me at least 2 to 3 previous supervisors. The rest of them can be whatever, work colleagues, clients, your pick, dealer's choice. If they come back to me and they skipped back 3 to 4 jobs to give me a previous employer, right, or a previous supervisor, then you've kind of got some areas you could dig into with that person and just say, hey, why didn't you give me references on these 2 companies? Is there anything we need to know about? What might happen there? And if you were doing your job on the front end screen, understanding why they left each company, you're kind of giving them the opportunity to either confirm what they told you at the beginning, which was 3 to 4 weeks ago that they've already forgotten about. Did they tell you the truth or did they lie? Right. So it's what they don't give you that can tell you a whole lot. What you're going to get it out of the references they give you. I mean, in 13 years of doing this, I think I've only ever had one person give me a reference that came out negative. And I was, so
I like the idea of being very intentional about what type of references that you're asking for, right? Because a lot of people say, I just need professional references, right? Give me a couple professional, couple of personal references. Taking the extra step of saying, hey, I'd like someone that was your supervisor or your manager in one of the previous roles that you worked. So I like that. What other big mistakes do you think restoration companies are making when it comes to recruiting right now?
I think the biggest thing that I see is this kind of broken dichotomy between candidates, recruiters, and hiring managers. It's a very broken wheel, and it's been this way since I started recruiting. I'd argue it's probably been this way since the beginning of time. You have candidates that are ghosting employers and recruiters now because we, as the employers and the recruiters, have done a really crap job of giving them feedback each step of the way, right? We created this condition where candidates feel it's okay to ghost us. Employers don't really like recruiters, and a lot of them view us as used car salesmen because, one, there probably are a lot of bad recruiters. Like there's a lot of bad people at any job.
Sure.
But recruiters haven't done a good job of communicating well with our clients. We haven't done a good job of communicating well with our candidates. It's a whole other podcast on my theories on why that is, but it really boils down to we're not talking to each other in the right manner with the right frequency and being honest. And then, recruiters are frustrated with candidates and hiring managers because there's not a clearly defined process. They're not communicating quickly. Now, I look bad because I'm ghosting this candidate because I can't get feedback from the hiring manager. Right. And what it really boils down to is none of us are in alignment and none of us are communicating well. And it really sounds pretty familiar, right, with probably what a lot of restorers hear when their clients are pissed off at them, right? We're not communicating. We're not in alignment. We're not talking at the right frequency. We have no idea what's going on our job, right?
That's funny. So treat the recruitment process like you would treat a large commercial loss. It'll be a better experience for the candidate.
Totally. Exactly. Right. And then, that person's going to come in and they're just going to be more engaged. If they had a really bad hiring process, they probably will tell you no at the offer stage. If they say yes, there's a rhyme and a reason they need to say yes, and they may keep their radar up afterwards, right? So you are really building a relationship all the way through. And if I don't communicate with my significant other, not just while we're dating, but after we get married, we're probably not going to stay married for very long, right?
True.
So it's all relationship building. That's really what recruiting is. That's what business is. And if you stink at communicating, you're probably going to create an environment where a lot of people don't like you or are frustrated with you at the least.
Mitchell, it's obvious listening to you that you are passionate about talent acquisition and also passionate about the restoration industry. And you're a great communicator, by the way. Great guest so far. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about OPS staffing? Because I'm sure some of the folks in the audience have hired staffing agencies before, been burned, spent thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars to get a candidate, or not get any candidates at all, or to get bad candidates, or to hire a candidate that jumped ship the first 30 days there, right? So talk a little bit about OPS staffing, and how you are structured, and how that structure makes it very important for you to only partner with companies that you think are doing a great job of creating opportunities for their employees.
Yeah, good question. So I'm going to kind of peel that back to maybe educate people on different pricing models you'd see from recruiting firms and just what's kind of common. Not really in our space. I think our space has one pricing model, but if you get into other industries, and I know agency firms that recruit in all different verticals, um, the first and kind of the most common is contingent recruiting, meaning, Clinton, you tell me I need a salesperson. Great. I take a job order. We understand what your story is. We go find candidates. If you hire them, you pay a percentage of base salary. Those percentages can roughly range anywhere from 15 to 30% of the base salary,
Okay.
right? But it costs you nothing to see what we can find. You only pay if you hire one of our candidates. Most of them will offer some level of guarantee, whether it's 30, 60, 90 days, 120 days. They'll give you a full credit towards finding a replacement candidate. So that's the contingent model, right? No risk for the client. Recruiter takes on all the risk. That's why the fee is so expensive at the end, because you're putting zero skin in the game. Then there's retained, and some people call it containers, retainers, things like that, right? It's, let me take a deposit. Maybe it's $5,000, $10,000 down. Same kind of 20% fee, but we'll deduct that out of the fee at the end, right? There's all sorts of like red tape that can go involved with that with retainers. The only way I would personally recommend doing it, and the only way I've ever sold it or done it, is I'm going to guarantee that you will see a certain amount of candidates, usually 2 to 3 candidates that you want to interview, and that we both agree fits all of the things we discussed in our intake call. If I can't deliver that, where you have some level of product to talk to, I will give you your money back, right?
Okay.
But it's, $5,000 down. If it's a $20K fee, we'll deduct that from the final fee. So either way, your total spend at the end still the same. There's a newer model happening in a lot of different spaces where you've got recruiters doing like fractional recruiting, where, hey, if your job order, you're looking for the same salesperson, I'm going to charge you $7,000 to $10,000. I'm going to come in and work this order. There's no kicker at the end. There's no guarantee up front. I will even review all your job ads, help you write the job ads. So it's really like a fractional internal talent acquisition partner that could come in and take care of everything per order with some level of flat amount or like a monthly amount of 3, 4, 5 grand, right? Until the order gets filled, but not to exceed any amount, right? So those are the 3 popular ones. The last one, I don't know of anybody in restoration doing it. I think it's kind of cool, but I think there's a lot of inherent reputational risks about that.
Sure.
The second one, there's definitely agencies that do it. And then the first one's the most common, contingent, right? So contingent and retained are probably what you're going to see if you talk to agency owners. My philosophy personally, I have no problem putting my money where my mouth is, right? Like, commission doesn't bother me. We'll work that way. But I am assuming a ton of risk. So we always do contingent if it's a restoration specific role where, hey, I want an estimator. They have to come from the industry. I'm not paying you for anything other than plug and play talent from a competitor. Going back to the numbers, like where my head's at, why we just stick with that. Going back to the estimator example in Raleigh, you had 50 candidates to choose from. If I get a good response rate of 10%, which would be a good response rate, right? In email marketing, it's less than that, but in recruiting, that's a pretty healthy response rate. I have 5 people to talk to. If we can just say at least one's going to ghost us, right? We assume that. We're down to 4. Of the 4, maybe 2 are worth submitting. So if I'm putting forward 2 candidates that are interested in that window of time, do you think it's really fair that I'm charging you a retainer up front, or is the candidate pool realistically so small that I can't guarantee you I'm going to fill it, right? So why would I take somebody's money like Indeed's going to do to you. It's my number one pet peeve with all these job boards. They have no skin in the game. They're just robbing your money blind, and there's no results, right? So that's why we do contingent. We successfully present somebody from the restoration space on more than 90% of the orders that we touch. Wow, that doesn't mean that person's worth hiring, and I understand that, and I'll live in the reality and truth of saying, hey, don't pay me for a C-level candidate. Sometimes, the best person that we can find right now isn't truly the best person in the marketplace, because high performers don't always make a move, right? Okay. So
because
hopefully that gave them a good amount of meat to chew on there, where it's a lot of good info.
I love that. Working on a contingency model, does OPS have to be really, really careful in terms of what restoration companies they take on Rex for?
Oh, totally, right? Like, I'm working for free. It's probably one of the few industries where you are going to work for free with no guarantee of making any level of money. You wouldn't go to a CPA firm and say, hey, Clinton, I want you to do my taxes, but I also want to hire 2 to 3 other CPA firms that do it. I'm not going to pay you anything. Whoever can give me the best tax savings, I'll pay them the $5,000.
I love that idea, Mitch.
Would you do it? Right.
I love that idea, Mitch. Let's go.
Any business owner would say yes, but like the logical fallacy behind it is kind of like, wait, right? Like that doesn't make a ton of sense. So we are assuming 100% of the risk. We have to be really sold that, one, it's fillable for business purposes, right? If it's not fillable, why would we take it on? Then there's the second piece to it. And I think this is kind of why a lot of candidates, and especially high performers, trust me. I'm very honest and we're very ethical. I take it very, very seriously that whoever I'm recruiting, I'm truly taking them to an opportunity that is going to be better for their career, right? Or a company that's going to fix whatever pain points they're having. Like they're not going to go from the frying pan into the fire, because I'm pulling them out of a job where they're probably somewhat happy. They're making money. They're taking care of their family. And if I drop them into a company that is a fly-by-night company, doesn't take care of their people, is shady, doesn't pay their bonuses, any of the horror stories that I hear at least 5 to 10 of a week from a candidate, that's really greasy on my part, right? I'm no better than the used car salesman that every client feels like we are, and a lot of candidates feel like recruiters are too, right? So, the last analogy I'll make before I keep dropping a whole bunch of them would be, if you're in sales, you're a fisherman, right? You're only as good as the bait you're given. So if I'm representing a bad brand, comp's not good, the role's not attractive, there's not a compelling story I can tell, then what are the odds I'm going to fill it, right? And what are the odds that this person's going to be satisfied a year, 2 years, 3 years from now? And why would a client want to pay me for somebody that's coming in for 6 months? That makes no sense, right? So everybody's unhappy, including myself and both other sides of the table.
I like that. Mitchell, I'm sure there's some restoration company owner that's in his truck or he's at his desk and he's listening to this podcast or he's watching us on YouTube and he's like, man, this sounds like the kind of guy that can help me find that estimator I'm looking for, that project manager I'm looking for, that member of the leadership team that they're looking for, right? What would you say to him is the reason that OPS is really positioned well to help them fill that role, if it's a good fit, if it's a good partnership?
Yeah, I mean, I want to first give a couple shout out. Like, there's really good agencies in our space. I think Tyler Tonelli at Restoration Recruiter is fantastic. Rebecca at at Artemis, she's fantastic. Chris Lake with Restoration RPS, Restoration Professionals. Forgive me, I'm botching their acronym out of Denver. They're really good. Weilander, Christie's been in it for a long time. Greg Taylor. There's a lot of good agency owners. What I believe is our differentiator. I stay intentionally small for a reason. I clearly know the business really, really well inside and out. And the person that's going to be telling your story in the marketplace really matters. I think that's where a lot of people don't realize what recruiting is. They think it's take order, find me candidate, right? But if I can't craft a compelling message, if I can't tell your story, get a passive candidate on the phone, and then sell them on why they should just come have a cup of coffee with you, at least have a conversation, then you're not going to see great talent. You're going to miss a lot of talent, right? A lot of people may respond and say, sure, I'll talk to this company. But if the recruiter working on your job order isn't really adept at telling a story, understands your story, and can do it properly, then that person's probably not even going to come in for an interview, right? So we stay small for a reason, because I think that takes a lot of time, and I probably stunk at it for 3 to 4 years. And thank you for all the clients that just let me work on their orders and crack eggs during that time and stay after it, because it takes a long time to get really good at that, right? So it's myself or Sam. We have one other full-time recruiter. We've all done it for a really long time, and our sourcer people that we've trained that are here in the States. I don't outsource it overseas. It's a high level of quality control and a white glove service that we provide from beginning to end, from outreach to when they get an offer. You're going to have to deal with me all the way through, and I'm probably going to drive you crazy on making sure I get feedback and follow up each step of the way.
I love it. That's Mitchell Riley, folks, with OPS Staffing. Tell the audience how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in you guys' program.
Yeah, so I'm one of the partners, OPS Staffing. You can go to our website, opsstaffing.net. If you fill out a contact form, you're either going to get myself or Sam on the phone. You can check me out on LinkedIn. I'll even give you my cell phone, 832-477-2011. And my email address is mriley@opsstaffing.net. So any of those places, I'm very accessible, very available. I respond within 24 hours to everything.
Awesome. And if you're driving right now, don't try to write this and drive or put it in a note on your iPhone there. We're going to drop all of Mitchell and OPS Staffing's contact information in the show notes or the YouTube video or the YouTube description. You'll be able to find him there. Mitchell, it has been an absolute pleasure to get you on here. It's obvious that you're really passionate about talent acquisition, and you're equally as passionate about the restoration space. So we really appreciate having you on today.
Thank you, Greg. Or thank you, Clinton. Appreciate it.
Okay. I'm called worse today. All right. To the audience, if you like what you guys hear today, make sure that you guys subscribe, follow us on social. This is the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. We'll be back next week with another episode where we talk to restoration industry leaders like my guy, Mitchell Riley. Mitchell, again, thank you for being on the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast.
Thank you.
All right, all my restorers out there, you guys make sure you stay busy, stay dry, and stay safe. Have a good one. Thank you for listening to the Restoration Pros Unplugged podcast. If you like what you heard today, be sure to subscribe, share, and also leave us a 5-star review. We'll be back with more interviews and discussions with restoration industry leaders really soon. In the meantime, if you're a restoration company looking to add more high-value water jobs, you can reach me and my team at waterrestorationmarketing.net. Again, that's waterrestorationmarketing.net. I look forward to hearing from you soon.